Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jacques Rougeau, a.k.a. the Mountie. How's it going?
CJ Ruthless. Try that again, Jacques Rougeau.
Jacques Rougeau.
There you go. There you go.
It slipped on my throat a little bit.
You know, it's so funny because so many of the Americans and guys used to call me Jacques, and they had a hard time saying my name, so I'm used to it. Don't worry.
Just like your fabulous gimmick where you were the All-American.
Yeah, fabulous Rougeau brothers. Yeah, that was a good time, So how are you, sir?
Doing great. Doing really great, man. So for all those wrestling fans, where can they find your social media platform?
Oh my God, they could go on wrestling-academy.ca for my biggest the biggest contest in the world right now, wrestling. They could go on my Facebook. I'm a kind of a Facebook guy, so I'm a dinosaur. So I made it to Facebook, so I'm doing good. So if you see a picture of me and my girlfriend, it's a great place to go because I post everything I do of different situations, my personal life, my business life. So if you want to follow me there, I guess on Facebook, that's the best place to follow me.
That's where I found you at.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Where are you from? Where are you from, CJ?
California, which is Fresno, which is in the 559.
Oh, yeah, Fresno. Jesus, Arco Arena, right? No, Fresno wasn't. Was that Arco Arena? No, that was Sacramento. That was Sacramento. Yeah. Fresno was more inland, I think. It was more.
Yeah, it was Selling Arena back then, but now it's the Save Mark.
That's it. That's right. That was like 35 years ago. That's right.
Yeah, they had the Royal Rumble there too.
What a great place, Fresno. I like that place. Wasn't it off Route 99 or something like that? Highway 99 goes to Fresno, or
it had to go in between Highway 99, yes. And then it was going all the way downtown. Downtown is where the Selling Arena was, and it's still around, but it's just not like, because the Save Mark Center is like the biggest deal now.
You know what I remember the most when I think of California? A lot of people remember California Dreams, but I remember the big electricity propellers there that they start putting there, like in the desert there, like to make electricity there. What do you call those things there? Those you know what I mean? Like they're like big giant propellers that make electricity.
You're talking about the ones from all the way down Southern California. It's like those little those mills.
Mills. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I remember the most. I was so impressed by that. It was the first times that I got to see those, and I was saying I thought I was on another planet. Looking at those things, and it was just amazing
yeah. Especially down the desert when you go down Southern California, going towards Palm Springs, they had those big giant mills down there.
Yeah. So how's the weather in California these days?
It's pretty hot over there.
Yeah. Very good.
I mean, Northern California, Southern California, it's not as hot, but in the middle of the Central Valley, you get a lot of the heat over here.
Yeah. I remember Venice Beach also. I had a great time in Venice Beach when I was going to wrestle at the sports arena in Los Angeles. I remember one day I was going to work out at the gym, at the Gold's Gym, and on the beach there, and I crossed the path with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was funny, with a big cigar, with his convertible that was the size of my kitchen table. It was a small car, and he had this big cigar about as long as his hood, and he was on the corner of the street. And my brother Raymond and we saw him, and I looked at my brother Raymond, and I'll never forget, because he, on a stop sign, the first one that gets in the stop sign is the first one that takes off. And he got he got first on the stop sign. We arrived second, and he just looked at us like, he didn't even look at us. He waved like this. So I thought to myself, man, what a conceited son of a gun. And then I turned my head and I saw Arnold. I told my brother Raymond, I said, hey, it's Arnold. I'm telling you, it's Arnold. So about 2 minutes later, we went into the gym. And then I asked the owner of the gym, I said, hey, I think we just crossed Arnold Schwarzenegger. He says, yeah. He said, he just finished working out. So that was kind of, it was special for me.
Oh, yeah. I bumped into him when he was the governor, when he was at a junior college event, and he was doing like some type of conference, and I was just lucky enough to bump into him at the time.
Great icon.
The Terminator is like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, him with Jesse the Body Ventura in it, spitting on everybody's boots, and the Predator. No, that was the Predator.
Oh, yeah, the Predator. Yeah, there was the Predator. True Lies was another movie he did, and then he did a couple of kids movies too.
Yeah. What a great actor. I liked him. I liked the guy. He had a lot of charisma.
A lot of charisma, but he was a gym rat. So it was like this guy was just toned up, and his accent from Austria. He just had, I mean, he just looked the part whatever movie he put in. So like, yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of what you wanted to promote, you said you wanted to promote the wrestling academy. Like, can you explain to
Yeah,
them?
yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me the time, especially for the people out west there, and just so they know that right now around the world, there's the biggest wrestling amateur contest in the world, and there's nothing like it. And I started this with 2 years ago with my girlfriend. So what we do is, there's 10 provinces in Canada, and every province have their own indie federations, like small federations of wrestling and promotions and organizations. And so I went and I sent some invitations to all 10 provinces, telling them that I'm going to pay their flights, pay their hotels, and I'm bringing them in for 2 grand prizes, which is like there was 4 winners last year of $5,000 each, and 3 months to spend at the Nightmare Factory in Atlanta, Georgia, being trained by QT Marshall, Billy Gunn, and Cody Rhodes. And Cody Rhodes just finished WrestleMania main event in front of 80,000 people, 85,000 people. So it's not just anybody, So these 3 guys, 5 days a week, are going to train my winners of my wrestling academy for 3 months, 5 days a week. So that's just absolutely amazing. And that was last year. And this year, the winners are winning $10,000, and then they're going 3 months again at the Nightmare Factory. So this contest is just huge. And if you want to see it, go on wrestling-academy.ca, and you can already see the 2 quarterfinals that happened. The elimination happened then. Now, on the August 20th is the semifinals, and then finally on the 17th of September is the big day where we have the winners, and it's the finals. And QT Marshall's coming to Montreal, and he's a judge of this competition the whole time on a giant screen. But now he's coming to Montreal live for the awards, and he's also going to wrestle. QT Marshall's going to wrestle one of my losers of Wrestling Academy, one a guy that he eliminated during the contest. He's going to come to Montreal actually and wrestle him for a consolation prize. So that's just absolutely magnificent.
Definitely interested. I'll definitely gotta check it out. For everybody else, man, you gotta check it out. Wrestling Academy. He's got a lot of this contest, man. I guess QT Marshall goes for the loser then.
Yeah, you know what? It's good because thanks to him, I got this opportunity for all the Canadian wrestlers to make their way to the United States, because the biggest problem right now with Canadian wrestlers is they can't get visas or working papers to go work in the States. But so what I'm giving them is an opportunity to go and spend 3 months in Atlanta and to be seen by QT Marshall and Billy Gunn with AEW and Cody Rhodes with WWE. So they're all three looking at my winners for like 3 months. So if they see something they like and they can just get discovered, well, at least I will have been like a trampoline for them to go. And I don't get any working papers for them or nothing, but I think I opened the door for them. And my dad used to tell me something, because we're 4 generations of wrestlers in my family, and so I know about wrestling. And my dad used to tell me when I was young, he used to say, there's 2 ways, son, that you can make it in this business. The first thing is being at the right place at the right time. And the second way you can make it is knowing the right people. And I think this contest, bringing them to Atlanta, Georgia, in front of Cody Rhodes, Billy Gunn, and QT Marshall for 3 months, I think that's what my dad was telling me when I was young. So it's up to the talent to get noticed, I guess. I'm just opening the doors for them.
Getting that exposure gets them noticeable right there. That's good for them. I mean, you've done training for a lot of years, and you have I don't know if you still do training, but you do that Rougeau Academy. So
I had my wrestling school for like 20 years, and actually Kevin Owens is one of my students. Kevin Owens came to see me. He was 14 years old, and I had him 3 days a week, 2 hours a day for 4 years, from 14 to 18 years old. I showed him how to crawl, how to walk, how to run, and how to talk. And then, so that's a little bit of pride of my wrestling school. But I've taught a lot of wrestlers in Canada also. And a lot of the guys like Jeremy Prophet, who won Wrestling Academy last year, was my student. And so I had a chance. As a matter of fact, just last week, I went to KL Shock's wrestling school in Ontario for a seminar for 2 days. And what a great time I had there, just going in a new school and talking about my career on Friday night. And then Saturday morning, I made a surprise to everybody. I said, okay, guys, I was talking to the class. I said, today I'm not here to give you a class. Today, what I'm here for is I want to match you guys together between you guys. I want you to do a match for me. And then I want to go ahead and break it down after each match and tell you what you did good, what you need to do, and things like that. And what a blast we had, just going to a new school, a new territory, and helping these kids out like that. So at least I'm living my dream still. I've been in the business for like 50 years now, and so it's been my life, and so I'm still in it, and so it's fun.
Yeah, it's in your blood. I mean, you've done it for so many years. I mean, what really got you to begin in the wrestling business?
Well, like I said, I was 3-4 years old, and my dad and my uncle, they have promoted in Montreal. They were the owners of the business in Montreal, Quebec. And every Monday night was the big event. And on Sundays, the boys that used to wrestle my dad, the opponents, they used to come to my house in the country. And I was like 3-4 years old. I'd see Abdullah the Butcher. I'd see Joe Ledoux come to my house with all these scars in their heads. And I'd see all these superstars come to my house to talk over the match that they're going to have the next day. And, so for me, it was like I was brought up in wrestling. It was like I even started going around the pool at my home and acting like them, putting a sheet on my head, trying to be an Arabian sheik and having all these funs. And so wrestling has been part of my life. So it's not like I fell in love with wrestling when I was 17, 18, or 20 years old. I was around wrestling when I was 3 years old, 4 years old. So for me, it was a way of life. It was just a time. And like I said, I had 3 sons who wrestled for 20 years for me. And they were the 4th generation of the family. So it's something like it was just easy for me to comprehend. And that's why today when I see wrestlers like in my wrestling academy, I see a lot of the wrestlers that are coming in this contest, and they have advantages. It's because they're 2nd generation wrestlers or 3rd generation. So there's just something there about those guys that are 2nd and 3rd generations that you don't have to explain to them. It's like they understand more. They've been around it since they were young, and they've seen it since they were young, and so it's easier for them to understand and to cap things.
Oh yeah, they've been born in the business. It has to do with their father or their mother who wrestled in the business, and it catches on naturally. Like, when you think of a lot of these wrestling families in Canada and all over the United States, you think of the Wild Samoans, which are the Anananis, and then you think of the Harts, and then Rougeau's. It's just another like big tree. You got a lot of.
Think of the Von Erichs, the
Von Erichs,
there's so many, the Fullers, the Welches, there's so many families that should be recognized today, and they're 2nd and 3rd generation. So yeah, and it's like, if to put people in context, it's like your father's been a garagist all his life, working on cars all his life. Well, then his father was in the garage business too. So there's a good chance that when you grow older, you'll be able to fix your car on your own there, because you will have been around it all your life. And so it's like that in wrestling. And there's so much in wrestling that you could learn, but when it's in your blood, it's different.
Yeah, it's like you've caught on to it, like you said, at 3 years old. It was just natural for you. And then your dad was a wrestler, your grandfather was a wrestler,
my great uncle was a wrestler, my son, and it's almost like another thing that brings to that. It was like my brother Raymond was that also, and I remember, the best partner in wrestling that I've ever had was my brother Raymond, because we understood each other, like, without even looking at each other in the ring, we knew where we were. We knew how it was. It was just a way of, blood is thicker than water, and it's true. And it's like when you have that 3rd sense, that 4th sense, that how he's thinking, how he's acting, and if something that unexpected happens, how he's going to react. So you can react with him like before it happens, and it's yeah. So that's why Raymond and I were such a great team when we worked together. It was always doing everything behind the referee's back, where the referee would never see us cheat, and then we knew how to do that at best.
Get the win.
We knew how to do that at best, and that was the best heat, because the people would be screaming at the referee, and the referee turned around, and we'd be like, yes. and the people would be pissed off at us, because they'd say, these guys they're what I mean? Like, they're just goddamn cheaters, and then the referee never see it. And that's the best heat you could have in wrestling, is doing everything behind the referee's back. And then Raymond and I were specialists in that. That's the fabulous Rougeau brothers.
Yeah, and then it became such an all-American thing that you guys had to run into WWF at the time.
Yeah, yeah, it was awesome. We were lucky. I wrestled with my brother so many years before coming to WWF, and then I had a 4-year run with my brother Raymond. I had a 10-year run in the WWF. I had three characters that were successful. I had the fabulous Rougeau brothers, and then I had the Mountie, which was absolutely awesome. The Intercontinental Champion beat Bret the Hitman Hart, got beat by Piper, and then I was the Quebecers. I was 3-time tag team champions of the world and beat Steiners to start with, and went on to beat Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, and then went on to beat the Men on a Mission. And so it was like, so I had three great titles. I had 4 titles with the Intercontinental one, 10 years in the WWF. So that was like it was an amazing run. Not a lot of guys could say they had 3 characters in the WWF or WWE. And so I was a lucky one. And then came home after all that nice things that happened to me, and then became the only Canadian to ever beat Hulk Hogan. So I'm the only Canadian to pin Hulk Hogan 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring, and I did that in Montreal. You can go see on that internet on YouTube, Jacques Rougeau versus Hulk Hogan, and you'll see the memorable night that I had. That was absolutely awesome. So I was lucky. I had a great career. I lived my dream, and then so it's been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe technically, since in Montreal, since you guys were the fan favorites, it would probably be like just to get the crowd so over it. Like beating Hulk Hogan is a big deal. So it's like this guy was the face of the company back then.
And he wasn't only the face of the company. He was more than that. He was the guy that, there was 3 shows per night in the WWF. At the same night, there was 3 crews going around the world. And, there was the A crew and the B crew and the C crew. And, and of course, Hulk was always on the A crew. And, if Hulk Hogan was on that card, when you get in the dressing room, you'd look on the card that night. And if if Hulk was there, you knew it was going to be sold out. You knew it was going to be 20,000 people, 18,000 people. And so you knew you'd have a bigger paycheck. So, and you always wanted to go out there and perform your best when you're at the undercard with Hulk Hogan, because, a lot of people think in the wrestling business, they say, oh man, the main event is so-and-so. It's so good. It's so important. But the truth is that the main event is not the most important match on the card. The most important match on the card is the first one. Because if you start the people on the right note and you give them a great first match, then everybody gets into it and you start them good. And then by the end of the evening, they're all so excited and everything. If you have a bad match at the beginning of the evening, then it takes time before the crowd to get into it. And then Hulk has a hard time to go out there and perform. So Hulk really always liked us. He always liked me personally, because he knew that every time I was on the card, whether it was on first match, second match, third match, I always gave a great show. And I always got the people, it's funny because, I remember when we first came, Raymond and I, to New York, and we were good guys, and before we became the fabulous Rougeau brothers with Jimmy Hart as my manager, we were the Rougeau brothers. But when we came into New York, the Rougeau brothers from Quebec, Montreal, the Americans are so patriotic that they didn't give a shit about Canadians, so it's like me and Raymond are going into the ring, we're trying to make our way through, but, people are like, oh yeah, oh, they're good, but they're not Americans, right? So, and we were working so hard. Raymond and I remember we'd get in the ring and we'd start the match like, oh, yeah. But then our match was so good. Oh, man. And at the end of the match, 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, people were on their feet going, wow, what a match. But it was always, and then we'd come back the next time. Oh, yeah. So we'd have to start over. Every time we'd have to go back in the same city, we had to win them over again. It wasn't given to us because we were Canadians. And then when we turned heels, bad guys, man, did we have a blast laughing at the Americans. Man, did I have a blast taking that little American flag and going, oh, I want to wish you all a great Memorial Day when it was Thanksgiving, and just and saying, I'm all American and we're so happy to be Americans. Now we moved to Memphis. And they were so pissed off, the Americans, because we were embarrassing them, insulting them. But what a pleasure in doing that.
That's great heat right there.
But then they accepted us. And then we didn't have to ask them twice to boo us when we come out. As soon as we come out the curtains with the little American flags like this, man, they'd have the little flags. They'd be so pissed off at us. So that was fun. So, but anyway, I'll let this say.
Yeah. So, what was your greatest match you've ever had?
Man, I had such a long career. I can't pinpoint one. I could probably put 3, 4 out there real fast. Always enjoyed working tremendously with the Big Boss Man, especially the Big Boss Man, the Mountie against Big Boss Man, the Canadian law enforcement officer against the American law enforcement officer, and then going to the Madison Square Gardens after a year and facing each other, and the loser had to spend the night in jail, with the minibus coming right up the fifth floor at Madison Square Garden, picking you up and throwing you in that thing where they threw the bandits in there and bringing you to jail and getting the prints and the fingerprints and all that stuff. It was an amazing night. That was a great night. I remember the great nights that we had with the Hart Foundation, Jim the Anvil Neidhart and Bret the Hitman Hart, with Jimmy Hart as their manager, and the Hart Foundation, when they became good guys, we became bad guys, they became good guys. So we wrestled them for like 4 years. But what fun we had with the Hart Foundation. And how can I forget about the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, the Rockers. They were just awesome to work with. We'd go in the crowd, and I remember matches we had with them. We had marathon matches. It was so easy to work with them. They were so good talent, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. We'd go in there and we'd do marathon matches that would last 1 hour matches on the card. So if you had 2.5 hours of wrestling that night, 2 hours, 45 minutes, 1 hour was our match. We'd have to do 1 hour, and the ones that would win the most fall would win the match. And it was so funny because we'd always end up making it like at 5-4 near the end, 5-5, 6-5, and then we'd finish 6-6 after an hour. And then I'd look at the referee and say, "Well, I want overtime." So we'd do another 5 minutes, and people would blow their minds. And we did that at the Madison Square Garden in front of Vince McMahon, and he just went nuts. And one night, actually one day I'll never forget, we were in London, England, and since there's 6 hours difference, so we went earlier here in North America. So we wrestled at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in London. We took a 6-hour flight and did an 8 o'clock show in Philadelphia. So we did 2 1-hour matches in one day with the Rockers against the fabulous Rougeau brothers. But it was so easy. The guys they're so great. I don't understand today why Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels together as the Rockers are not in the Hall of Fame. That's just absolutely unforgivable. All the time that we put in, and you know what? It's funny because we used to have those matches, and we have this expression in my world, in my language, that we say today, wrestling has gone too far. It's different today. I have the mentality that less is more. Do a little less, but make it mean something. And Shawn Michaels, Marty, we used to start the marathon matches, me and Shawn, we used to start it, and I'd go to lock up with him, and I'd say, wait a minute, I'm not ready, wait a minute, push him back, ref, push him back. And then the ref would come in, push him back, and then I'd get on my back, I'd lay on my back in the middle of the ring, and I'd do a nip up, just boom, land on my feet, from lying on my back there, just a flip, land on my feet. And when that would happen, it was amazing. I'd look at the people, and then I'd go like this, like, wasn't that a great move? Like, wasn't that just great? And then people go, boo. So then Shawn Michaels be saying, come on, let's wrestle. So I'd turn around, I'd go to wrestle him. And as we'd go to lock up, I'd go underneath him. I'd go on the other side and say, wait a minute. Why don't you try that nip up? And then I'd get down on the floor again, and I'd do another nip up where I land on my feet. I said, why don't you try it? You say you're an athlete. Why don't you try it? And then he'd be getting pissed off, look at the referee and say, hey, well, I want to wrestle here. Blah, blah. And then finally I'd get him going so much that he'd say, okay. So he gets in the middle of the ring, and then he gets on his back, and he'd do a nip up. And he'd do a great nip up. And he'd land right in his feet. And the crowd, 20,000 people, would be going, yeah, okay, Rougeau, you see now, he did it now. All right. So then we turn around to go and lock up. I said, wait a minute. Hold on a second, buddy. That was very good. How about this? Then I'd get out of the ring. I'd get on the outside ropes. I'd grab the top rope, and I'd do a flip on top of the rope and land on my feet in the middle of the ring. And I'd start walking cocky. And I'd go like this, like, now that's being an athlete. And I'd look at him, and people would be booing my ass, like, boo. And I'd go like, and then I'd look at him and say, hey, why don't you go ahead and try that, acrobat? So then he'd be pissed. And so finally I'd work the crowd with 1 minute or something, just working the crowd. And then finally he'd get out of the ring. He'd flip, he'd put his hands on the rope, he'd do a beautiful flip over the top, same thing as I did, land in the middle, and then he'd say happy. But while he was saying happy, there was 20,000 people going, yeah, oh, yes, sir. And then we'd turn around, we'd go to lock up for the first time after like 15 minutes, 12 minutes in the match, where we'd just been walking, talking, but getting the people all warmed up. Then we'd go to lock up, and then he'd go, look, whoop, whoop. Now he'd do it to me. He'd say, whoop, whoop, whoop. And then I'd go, like, what? And then he'd go up and he'd climb up the top rope facing the people on the outside, and he'd do a backflip off the top rope. And he'd land in the middle of the ring about 15 feet high. And I'd go like, and then he'd look at me to go like, why don't you try that? And then I'd look at my brother Raymond like, and then the people would be going mad like, yeah, mother, you try that. You try that. So we never touched. We never had a wrestling move yet. We had 15 minutes in the match gone and people on their feet. And so that's what less is more. The characters in those days, the personalities were in touch with the crowd. It wasn't like doing 1,000 moves and then 10 minutes where it's like boom, 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 boom. The guy who gets a drop kick today, he's standing up before the guy who gave it. You know, so a lot of wrestling makes no sense today. It's more like an athletic thing. So we had the great days, the 80s of wrestling, you know. And so I'm coming back to your question, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, the great guys to work with. I enjoy those. One of the best matches we've had.
So the Rockers were a good match for you guys, man.
Oh like my God! Oh my! Everybody that watched wrestling in the '80s, and they loved Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty as the Rockers.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure did. They were like a popular tag team. Like you get a lot of these little high-paced tag teams with the speed and all that stuff. And Michaels and Jannetty were just something like unique.
They were good-looking. They were handsome boys too. Like you know,
that's
like
why they call them the Rockers.
We looked pretty good, but don't forget we were Canadian. But we looked pretty good. But they were American, long hair. You know, they were cool. You know, that they were really cool. And I always remember one night I had so much fun. You know, Marty Jannetty, when I talk to him, even today, he always brings it back to me that time because I was serious when I said that. But he was in the ring, you know, and we were turning around to start the match, and this girl went like, "Oh, Marty!" And he looked at her, and I looked at Marty. I said, "Yeah, you probably met her in a bar." You know, and he, because we were so straight, Raymond and I, we didn't go out in bars. You know, we were always like, you know, and dedicated to the business too much, actually. But these guys, after the show, they'd go out and party and have fun, and they were the Rockers, you know. So, but when I told them that, I said, you probably met her in a bar. You know, and I was serious, and he just cracked up in the middle of the ring, like you know, yeah, Jacques, it does exist, you know, that we go in bars after and have fun, you know, and but anyway, they were great guys to work with. Sorry I took so much time on them, but it's
it's good, man. I like the stories where you had your good matches and your good feuds. I guess your gimmick, the Mountie always gets his man. Man, yeah. It had a good catchphrase because when you had the theme song, was it Jimmy Hart that put the song?
Exactly. Jimmy Hart was the greatest. You know, I always say that about Jimmy Hart, one of the greatest managers of all times. And people say, yeah, sure, you're going to say that. He was your manager twice. You know, so you're always going to say it. But I'm not saying that because he was my manager twice. I'm saying it because, listen out, people. Jimmy Hart is the best manager in the world and always was. And let me tell you why now. I'll back up my story. First of all, I'm the Mountie. I'm handsome. I'm brave. I'm strong. I'm the Mountie, and I enforce the law. You could try to run, but you can never hide. But the Mountie always gets his back. That song, I go to Comic-Cons today, and people still sing it to me 35 years later. And then another one. We don't like heavy metal. We don't like rock and roll. All we like to listen to is Barry Manilow. Hey, we're all American boys. That song, people sing it to me too. So Jimmy Hart was there. He used to buy his suits with your designs on, the colors of your tights. He would match his suits with your color of your tights. And then he'd be always on time. He would do your music. He would guide you in and out of the ring. He'd get on a promo, Jimmy Hart, unlike any other manager in the world. And the only thing he would do, he'd get on the promo, he'd start the promo and say, well, let me tell you something, Mean Gene. Let me tell you something. My men right here, they're training, they're in shape. He was the only manager that would go out there and not start about, well, you know, I'm the brain, you know, I'm smart, and I'm this, and I'm that, and let me tell you about. Jimmy Hart never took the center stage. He always gave the spotlight to his men. Having Jimmy Hart as your manager was so fun because by the time you took the microphone to talk, he had built you up so big that you were a superstar. And he never talked about himself. And the funniest thing today is when I go to Comic Cons with all the old timers and we meet and the newcomers and all that, Jimmy Hart's line is one of the longest lines that people go to get autographs and to see him and to meet him at Comic Cons. And he never talked about himself.
It's always been like the people he managed the most. Like if you look at the match where he had with he was managing like a lot of great wrestlers besides
Oh
you.
my God, he sure did.
Adrian Adonis was another guy he managed.
Yeah, I'm sure I didn't know that, and then it's funny because you're saying that. But Jimmy Hart, the every music, Hulk's music, all the great music that the whole company had, the whole WWF was asking Jimmy Hart to do the music because Jimmy Hart was a musician in the 50s and the 60s. He was with a group called the Gentrys, and and they were like on Soul Train and rock. They were big stars. But in the music business, so Jimmy Hart was the one who was producing all the music for the boys. So, like I said, you could. When I quit the business with my brother Raymond as the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, my brother retired in '89. We'd been there since '85 to '89. When Vince called me back to become the Mountie in '91, I told him, I said, "There's two conditions." I said, "The first condition is I want Jimmy Hart as my manager. That's the first thing. And the second thing is I wanted to bring my electric cattle prod, my electric shock stick." I said that was one thing I wanted to have. And so he gave me both. But Jimmy Hart, yes, greatest manager of all times up till today. You see him today, he's 80 years old, I think, and he dyes his hair black and he's got long hair still. He looks like he's about 62, 63 years old. And
he looks ageless.
He's 80.
Yeah, he's a big time Elvis fan too. So like he does a lot of, like, he was always that kind of manager that would distract the other competitors, and then he would try to get all the heat.
He was great with his megaphone too. Like he always had that megaphone by the ring. Hey, let me tell you, come on, baby. And always encouraging his guys, and hey, referee's cheating. Hey, referee's cheating. And he was always encouraging the match. He never standing still on a seat just watching a match. He was always running around the ring or doing something. Very, very entertaining, Jimmy Hart.
Yeah. Oh, I guess this is like your other theme song, but it's in French, right? The Mountie.
No, the Mountie is the Mountie song I sang to you, or "Handsome, Brave, and Strong." That was in English. But the other one, the All American Boys, there's just a little piece that's French in there, but the rest is in English though. And the little piece that's in French, Raymond and I produced it. But Jimmy Hart had done all the lyrics of the English and stuff. So those actually, it's funny, if you go in the best WWF wrestling songs, we're in the 10 best songs, and I got 2 of them in there in the best 10 songs, and it's Jimmy Hart that produced that.
Oh, okay. I mean, so that theme song was just all in English, but I mean,
yeah, and there was one paragraph that was in French. All American Boys.
All American Boys.
We don't like heavy metal. We don't like rock and roll. All we like to listen to is Barry Manilow. And then it was in French. On n'aime pas les chansons. On n'aime pas les. And then it was a little paragraph in French that we did, but all the songs were all American boys. And that was so yeah, it was all English except one paragraph in French. But those 2 songs, people come to me and meet me today in signatures, Comic Cons, and they start singing it to me every time. It's amazing how they marked their youth. When they were young, we marked them with those 2 songs.
It had to be like one of those little kids singing songs, a little bit, kind of. Like if you think about it. Yeah.
It was catchy. It was very catchy. Jimmy Hart knew how to do songs that were catchy.
Yeah. Grand Azar, I don't think he has that one in French, like the Mountie and the other songs. Like he has one little part on the other theme song of the American Boys.
Yeah, exactly.
But speaking of some of the interesting incidents, man, there was a lot of these ribs that went on behind the scenes, and you were happening to be one of those victims. So there was that incident that went on between you and Dynamite Kid. Like, what led into that?
Oh, I think, to be honest with you, it was the roughest part of my life. I got to tell you, it was the hardest week of my whole life. It was, Dynamite Kid, it's not a secret anymore. He was a bully. And at the beginning, he used to play jokes that were funny. But when someone gets the center of attention by doing something, finally, when they've passed through their repertoire and they've done all the jokes, they gotta either quit or either make the jokes a little less funny and a little less more attracting and more dangerous, more hurting, more painful. And so finally, with the years, over the years, Dynamite was very unhappy with the steroids and the alcohol and the drugs that they were taking. It was bad, and plus he was having some serious issues with his size. He wasn't a big guy. He was like I think he was like 5'9", and then so he took all those steroids and you know what? It's so funny because Raymond and I, when we first came in the WWF, the Bulldogs were our heroes. We looked at the Bulldogs like, man, these guys are phenomenal. Like, what they were doing, they were just the best. No one could even compete. We didn't even thought we'd try to compete with these guys. And when we got at the Madison Square Garden one night, and Vince had put the Rougeau brothers against the Bulldogs, and so we sat down together in the dressing room, and I think it all started there. Because when we sat down with them, they were world tag team champions, and we were just two French guys coming in, as the French Canadians, and Vince. I don't know if he wanted to just bring them down a little bit on their ego trip or whatever, but he just decided to say, well, we're gonna have tonight. I'd like to see a 20-minute match, a 20-minute Broadway, no winners. And when he announced that, the Bulldogs were like, kind of. I knew they felt bad about it because Raymond and I were going like, yes. I wasn't going like that in front of them, but inside I was going like, yes, yes. These guys are the World Tag Team Champions, and they're not even beating us tonight. Like, we're having a 20-minute Broadway with these guys, so there's no winner. So that gives us a lot of credibility. But if it gives us a lot of credibility, it takes a lot off of them, because so I think the heat started there a bit. So they thought we were a menace for their titles or for taking a spot away from them, and then he decided to rib me. He started to play jokes, and he played bad jokes on a lot of guys, like serious bad jokes. He cost a lot of jobs to a lot of wrestlers. One time he shaved a guy's head there, Outback Jack, in a bar. And they shaved his head complete. That was his gimmick, and then he had a crocodile on his back, like Crocodile Dundee, and then he had a crocodile coat there, and then after he put a bunch of pills in his drink, they went and they shit in his crocodile in the back, and then they brought him to the airport the next morning, 7:00, with full of shit in the head of the crocodile, and no more hair on his head, and Vince McMahon was there, and Randy Macho Man and Hulk and everybody. They saw him come in from the bar that night, and the guy lost his job, and then I seen Honky Tonk Man on his knees, Honky Tonk Man, was a great character in the WWF. I saw him on his knees in the dressing room crying. He scared him so much that because he was talking to a groupie. That was a girl that he used to talk to, but it made no sense. They were on this big power trip, and finally when they ribbed me. Well, I just told I told the people in charge that one of the wrestlers. I told him, Mr. Perfect. I said, I'm not going to stand for this. I said, Monday when we see Vince at the TV tapings and everything, I'm gonna tell Vince I'm not going to stand for this. If he wants to cut the pants off my legs, when it's -10 outside, and I got to go with one leg that has pants and the other leg is no leg. I said, that's not the kind of jokes that I'm going to live with. I'm on the road 25 days a month, and I don't need this shit. It's too hard. And so the same guy who I told that to, Mr. Perfect, when I left to go home for 3 days off, he went to see the Bulldog and said, hey, Jacques Rougeau's going to stooge on you. He's going to report you to Vince on Monday, about your jokes and what you did, and he's going to try to get you fired and this and that. And so he stirred up the shit, Mr. Perfect. He did all that, and finally ended up where the Monday when they came back after my 3 days off in Florida, I had Mr. Perfect again. He called me as soon as I got in the dressing room. He called me to play cards with him, but he called me at the other end of the dressing room where his back was to the wall and my back was to the dressing room. So I couldn't see anybody come in or come out. And I think it was all fixed together with them. And the Bulldogs came in, and there was like 6 of them. The Morocco Wharton, there was the Hearts, and there was the Bulldogs, and they all came in, all 6. And from behind, I had my cards in my hand like this, and Dynamite Kid just came and slapped me on the side of my ear. I fell off the chair. I turned around like, what the hell? I couldn't see nothing, and punch in the face, punch, and then kick in the face, and I was down on the floor. He just beat me up. He beat me up really bad. And then to a point where I wanted to quit the business. I was depressed. I was in serious trouble mentally. Physically, it wasn't so bad. I knew I'd recuperate, but mentally, I was hurt so bad because, that's not the way it's supposed to be in the business. And then I had to make a choice because my father was always my hero, and the Rougeau family is such a great name, and I didn't want to insult and be the embarrassment to the family, so I had to make a comeback. I couldn't leave it like that, or I had to become the McFly like in Back to the Future, one or the other. So and it wasn't my style, but I'm not a fighter in real life. I'm not a tough guy.
You seem like a peaceful person.
I don't like animosity, but there comes a point in life where I had to stand up, and so I did. So a week later, I don't know how I did it. I know my brother Raymond was coaxing me and coaching me, and helping me out because he's the tough guy in the family. I'm not, and then so he was helping me out with this, and then finally I called my father a week later. And then I told him, I said, Dad, I said, I'm going to do my comeback tomorrow. I'm going to save our face, and save our name. So, and the only thing my father told me was so funny. The only thing my father told me on the phone was like, I says, you listen to me now, because my father was a tough guy. Holy shit. Anyway, so my father told me, he says, he was like the real tough guys in the older days. And then so he told me, he says, you listen to me, son. He says, before you go to the show tomorrow, he said, you stop at the bank. And he said, you go get yourself a roll of quarters. And he says, when you take that roll of quarters, you put it in your hand, and when you hit him, he says, you hit him to kill him. And I was going like, holy shit. Already all week, I didn't sleep, I didn't eat. I lost 10 pounds because I knew I had to do this comeback against a guy who's on steroids, and he's a killer, he's a fighter, and he's all drugged up and all that. And for me, it was like such a big step in life. And then when my father told me to get the roll of quarters, I was going like, what if I miss? And I had so many thoughts that went through my mind, because it's not my comfort zone, let's say. And but I did it the next day, and I went and I did it, and when I hit him, there's 4 teeth that came out, the 2 front one up on front and the 2 back one. 4 teeth came out, and he was like a water fountain of blood coming out of his face, and there was pandemonium in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I did what I had to do, and it was amazing because so many things changed after that. So many things, and no one ever bullied me after that, and it's like, and plus for 25 years, I went after that. When I quit the business in like 87, 86, I quit the business with WWF. I started going to schools in the province of Quebec and Ontario, and I started giving conferences in front of 600, 700, and 800 kids at a time, and showing them how to fight bullying without using violence. I'd found ways to counter them, and I was going from school to school for 25 years. I helped society with that. So it wasn't all a bad thing. It kind of helped me in life too, but I'll never forget, because every time I go to school and people, the teachers, the principals come to me and say, Mr. Rougeau, you're so nice to do this, and you're so nice. And I was saying to myself, like, I'm not doing this for you guys. This is a therapy for me. Every time I'd come out of a school, it was like, and I'd see that I touched a few kids that would help me understand and comprehend what I went through. Because things like that, they scar you for life. It's something that'll stick with you. But today and today, and I meet people in different disciplines, different areas, I always tell them not to go to the same extreme as I did. But listen, I know schools, I was telling the kids, now you listen to me. The worst deal, the worst part of being bullied, and to get out of bullying, the only way to do it is to expose them. And that's the worst thing, because you're always saying to yourself, if he's hurting me now mentally and physically, and you feel like threatened and all that all the time and scared, if I expose him, he's going to kill me, or it's going to be so much worse. But it's not. Once you make that step, once it's publicized, once it's known, once everybody knows about your situation, 100% of the time it always goes away. But it's to make that step before you commit suicide, or before you get too depressed, or so you got to come out of there. And an amazing thing that happened to me is, like, over the 25 years I've been doing this now, I'm still doing it. Did it last spring again, and this spring again. And then the most important thing that came out of all this is 3 times in my life in the last 25 years, I had a parent that called me to go at their house and to tell me that I saved their kid. And you're going to say it's not a lot, 3 in 25 years, but when it's yours, it's a lot. And so that changed my life. I helped people get out of that situation that I was in for that week there, that I almost died. If you knew how many times that week before I did my comeback, how many times I looked at my brother Raymond, and I told my brother Raymond in the hotel's room, we're traveling together in the car, and I was telling him, like, I want to go home. I think I want to quit the business. This is not for me. Like this is, and my brother was saying, no, you got to do this. You got to do this. Just for the family, you got to do this. And then for you, this. And he was coaxing me, and I took a lot of, excuse my expression, but bigger balls than I had. So, but to have done it, to have accomplished it. And so many great things happened after that. I beat Hulk Hogan. I became Intercontinental Champion. I won 3 times the Tag Team Champions of the world. I've accomplished so many things after that, and I almost, just to say that at that point, I was so depressed and so down when I got beat up the first time that I almost left everything behind me, and I never would have been the same man today. So I'm telling people not to go to the same extreme, but don't let bullies do it to you. Don't let it. Don't stand for it. And go tell the police. Go tell the parents. Go tell the teachers. Go tell the principal. But just say it to somebody, and you'll see if you have the balls to go out and say it, to bring it out, your problem is going to be solved.
Yeah, like during my time, when I was a kid, man, I was getting bullied every now and then, but I knew the best way how to get them to leave me alone or either give me the respect was I was able to stand up to them and say enough's enough. And, there was that one moment where, when you have that moment where you're trying to be calm and cool and not try to have any issues, but then you have that moment where you're just blowing into red and just don't care at this point. I came at a lunatic ridge. And, the consequences was pretty bad, got suspended. But you had to fight your own bullies. Sometimes if you fight your own bullies, that was the only way to get away from it. But it wasn't something I wanted to do. But it had to be just like in that situation you went through. But I'm pretty sure when it comes to bullying, you got to stand up to the bully or find a way to avoid that issue. But, it happens, there's always.
And you got to remember one thing. A lot of people don't know this, but bullies, they only attack weak links.
Yep.
So if you show a little bit of strength, they're gonna leave you alone.
They like that. They like to go after the weak one. But if that so-called weak one they think is weak and he stands up like tough, they're not gonna.
They're gonna leave him alone. They're gonna leave him alone. And then it's amazing. I could go on and on about the stories that the parents. One parent called me and how it changed the life of her daughter. That they thought for the last 6 months she had talked 3 times at the supper time that she wanted to commit suicide. And then finally, when I went to her school and I gave my conference and the tricks to how to get rid of it, well, the next morning the girls, because the girls could be mean too. Don't get me wrong. And there was a bunch of girls at that school that was intimidating her, and then they went to see her in the locker room the next day and almost like to piss on their territory, to say hey, not because we had a conference yesterday that things are going to change. And when those girls came around her at the locker room, there's about 10 other girls that came around real fast and just grabbed her and brought her with them, and just took her with them. And the others were like the 4 or 5 that were always doing the bullying. They were standing there looking at the girl go, and so about a week later, the father calls me. So he says, Mr. Rougeau, he says, he lives an hour away. He says, Mr. Rougeau, I have to talk to you. He says, you went to my school and did a conference. I have to talk to you. So I said to myself, holy shit, I must have done something wrong, or said something wrong, And I got to the place, and then he told me, he said, Mr. Rougeau, he said, my girl in the last 6 months had tried to commit suicide 3 times. I had to go get her at school. She wouldn't take the bus and this. And for the last week, she's been taking the bus. She's been smiling at the table. She's happy. I had never seen her like that in 6 months. And he said, I used to see you as my wrestling hero, but now you're my hero in life. And I had 3 like that in 25 years. And what a reward. What a reward, man. You have no idea how I feel when I even say it today.
Because you've been through those shoes. You've been through that situation, so you know what it's like. I mean, you were getting bullied, and there was that depression. Sometimes people feel that way because they feel like it's the end of the world when they're getting so bullied and so weak at
it's
that
dark.
point.
It's dark. There's a tunnel with no light in it, and it's dark, and you don't see any issues, no exits. And then finally, if something happens where you do find an exit, then so stand up for yourself, people. Just don't tolerate bullying. Don't tolerate it.
That's a good advice from you. I mean, from you, Jacques Rougeau. I mean, you stood your ground and you made it be known that you're not a pushover. And at the time, Dynamite Kid was a tough dude.
Oof.
And you had the balls to stand up to the guy.
You're scary, I'll tell you.
I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah, to go after a guy who bullied in the center, he is as good as done and takes care of his wife and kids while I'm at it. I guess, you got to handle your bully. Sometimes that bully may not even be as tough as everybody says. He just looks tough because he thinks he can get away with it.
And then, a lot of things too, you got to understand about bullies is sometimes it's just because they were bullied too. They have parents that bullied them. They were bullied like that. And they just, so they were brought up that way. That was a way of life for them.
It could be that.
It could be.
Or the struggles.
Or the struggles. But anyway, I could just say that it was a hard time in my life, and now I'm so happy today. And my kids, I brought them up the right way about that, and gave them the advice on bullying and stuff. And so my kids don't ever look for trouble, but they're not going to stand bullying. That's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people change over the years, but when you stand up to them, they respect it. I mean, they'll either leave you alone at that point. So, like,
I want to take, if you don't mind, I'd like to tell you something that's really nice that happened to me yesterday.
Okay.
I got a message, and from DC Natman in Sudbury and Magnum McLaren, Project X Wrestling in Ontario, and they're starting a new Hall of Fame in Canada. And guess what? I'm the first inducted, the first one inducted in the Hall of Fame. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy because I don't understand up till today. I know that Vince hates my guts because we had a problem 30 years ago and we never spoke again. We had a little falling out there. But you don't judge people in the Hall of Fame for your personal relationship. You judge them on what you did for the business, what you did for their accomplishments and stuff like that. And I don't understand how my three characters, at least one of the three, are not in the Hall of Fame. I don't understand how the Rougeau family is not in the Hall of Fame. For everything, for the 75 years that we've done in wrestling, from my great uncle to my father, my uncle, my brothers, and my son. So it's personal with Vince McMahon. So I've learned to forget about being in the Hall of Fame at WWE, because I know it's personal now. And now that this guy comes out and I'm the first one to be inducted in Canada in the Hall of Fame, I'm kind of so happy because I shouldn't be, but I am. It's like I'm tickled to death because I'm saying, well, hey, if I'm the first one in the Hall of Fame, maybe in New York they're going to start saying, well, but I don't know if you saw the video last year of Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan had a video going around. I should have sent that to you. Hulk Hogan had a video last year. He put out a video and he says when they were inducting the Hall of Fame for this year, and they were saying, brother, I got a good feeling this year that the Rougeau brothers, Jacques Rougeau, is going to be in the Hall of Fame this year. And he spread that out, and it went around the world like a wave, And
when Hogan speaks, it becomes a big deal.
I'm thinking if this guy, the best icon in my days that ever was, far and beyond, and then he says that we deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So right there for me, it was a victory. And now for this company in Canada to start a Hall of Fame and me to be the first inductee, it just proves to me like, hey, Jacques, you did well as the Mountie, the Quebecers, and the fabulous Rougeau brothers. You deserve to be in there. And I'm not the only ones that had personal issues, like a Demolition should be in there. The Killer Bees should be in there. There's a lot of guys that should be in the Hall of Fame that created what the WWE is today and the WWF. And when you talk about going in front of 93,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome at WrestleMania 3 and being part of that card and Wrestling Valentine and Beefcake, who they're in the Hall of Fame, the Hearts are in the Hall of Fame, everybody I wrestled are in the Hall of Fame. But you know what? In a movie, to create Batman, you needed to have a good Joker. It takes it takes two to dance, and I'm the other one that was dancing with all these Hall of Famers, So it's like, for me, I'm glad to just be inducted by, I want to thank Magnum McLaren and his dad, DC Natman, for inducting me. It's coming on the 4th of August. It's going to happen. I'm going to get my memorial plaque and everything. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, dude. It's got to be one of those honors to even be inducted. And then the way how I look at it in today's Hall of Fame, when you look at the work, I mean, you put a lot of great work in any promotion. So I guess, like you said, the personal feelings between you and Vince is like, I don't get why it should matter. It should be about the person who performed in the ring and behind the scenes, whatever. That's got to be out of the door. You know what I mean?
Well, I've always said that, it's not by what your personal relationship is with a person, but more your personal accomplishments. And for a guy that he put 3 times a World Tag Team Champion and Intercontinental Champion and then the SummerSlam main event in Madison Square Garden against Big Boss Man, and plus so many other things that he did, that I filled the shoes in for him, that I'm hoping that one day he's before he gets in the grave there, before he puts the Rougeau name in the WWE, that should be in there for sure.
I'm pretty sure at some point he's gonna have to. I mean, there's just somebody that was in a great tough era. You know, you guys were competing in good territories. You guys came into the business, and you elevated guys like PCO, who's actually still wrestling to this day.
Yeah, exactly. And he was my Quebecer partner. We championed 3 times, and he's still going. He's as Frankenstein right now. He's
Frankenstein. Like the way his character is. It's like it's undestroyable, and he just comes out as a monster. Like, man.
Yeah. So he's doing very well for himself.
Yeah, that's great to know. But yeah, dude, it's pretty good that you had a great career. You look back at it. I mean, hey, you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, whether Vince thinks or not. I mean, you should be in the discussion, but you got into the Canadian Hall of Fame. That speaks a lot of volume. You're the pioneer of the business, so they gave you that honor. So that's got to be a huge amount of respect, you know?
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm very appreciative, and can't wait to go on the 4th and 5th of August to Sudbury, Ontario, to live that great moment. And yeah, my girlfriend was happy too when she saw the news. She says, "Yeah, it's a good. Finally, there's going to be a real Hall of Fame."
With a Rougeau on the name.
Yeah. So anyway, so listen, I don't know if we've been around the circle here, you and I, but I just want to say thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you for talking about Wrestling Academy. It is the greatest competition around the globe at this point in time. All these amateur wrestlers that have a chance to win $10,000 in 3 months at the Nightmare Factory. It's a great, great opportunity, the biggest opportunity to be seen by the biggest stars in the world of wrestling today. Thanks for letting me talk about that. And so if you have a chance, go check out the wrestling-academy.ca. Wrestling-academy.ca. Go check out the quarterfinals shows. They're on there. The semifinals will be there on the August 20th. The 17th of September, you'll see the show where QT Marshall chooses the winners, and he wrestles himself on that show. It's going to be awesome. There's also Ashley D'Amboise, who's wrestling in the States now, that she's going to come and wrestle one of the girls that are Canadians that have been eliminated too. So it's going to be a great party, and check that out, wrestling-academy.ca. Everybody in Canada is so excited about this contest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. It's an honor just to have you on the show. And, dude, thank you for great wrestling matches. Thank you for training some good athletes that come into the business. I mean, you're doing a great thing, man.
Well, it's ruthless.
That's ruthless, man. Like the impression you can tell. But hey, man, you know what, man? Since I want to put it this way, man, I definitely like to get a little autograph of the Mountie, man, just so I could put it as a nice little collection and put it in, because I got a bunch of wrestling signs, bro. It's like
really, I need to get a picture to you somehow, and signed picture for sure. I'd like to be on your wall in your Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the Ruthless Hall of Fame. I got Tommy Rich on there. I
got some stories. Tommy Rich, what a great guy. Yes, I was with him in Atlanta in the late '70s. Him and Wahoo McDaniel and Thunderbolt Patterson and God, I has Ric Flair, and we had so many. It was a good times then too. I started in '77, so I've been around the business quite a bit.
Yeah, you sure did. But thank you for your time. I'm pretty sure you got some stuff to do. For everybody else, thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, let's go ruthless.